James Ruzicka, are those two breasts on your head? What's happening with your hair, man? What's happening?
I'm sorry that I can't.
I'm sorry, I've got to take these teeth out. This is bloody ridiculous. That I hope I hope you recognise my haircut from Gary Oldman's outfit in Dracula, in Bram Stoker's Dracula, rather. Yeah. It took me blooming ages to put enough gel on my hair, and you know how little hair I have, to be able to swirl it into two tiny little grey breasts on my head. It seemed like a good idea to suggest that we come dressed as vampires to the popcorn counter, but I felt like an idiot sitting on the bus to get here this evening.
Well, but you look great, and those are great back boobs. I love them. Does your drink taste a little bit like blood? Because this,
I think it tastes a little bit like jam, which is which I'm pretty sure is what they put in the pump when they were filming the Francis Ford Coppola film. There's like a dramatic scene where they're pumping blood out of one of the characters and into Sadie Frost, I think, and it looks an awful lot like jam. In that jar. Well, you're a vegetarian, aren't you?
Yes. Well, I ate some fish, but mostly veggie. Yeah.
So if you were to drink your own blood, does that count or not?
To be a vampire, you mean, or
just in general, I suppose. But this is going to be one of the big reasons why you would say no to my "Would you like to be a vampire?" question. And we never even covered that last week. So we saw Dracula and we saw Sinners last week.
Yeah.
And having looked at my kind of list, I haven't actually seen an enormous number of vampire movies, and generally I don't really like them.
Well, I think we are, even though we're both dressed as vampires, I think we have the same feeling towards vampire films. There are a couple, there's one or two I've liked, I think. Did you ever see Let the Right One In? That was a Swedish vampire thing.
Yeah, okay, yeah, okay. So I have done a list of vampire films that I was prepared to watch here, and Let the Right One In is on it. I have not seen the US remake. I don't know whether that one completely drops the ball, but the original Swedish film is terrific. Gory, chilling, cute idea.
Yep.
And I suppose the elevator pitch is it's a vampire movie, but it's a child.
Yes.
And they get a lot of value out of it, actually. Yeah. So they start with a high concept and they work it very hard, and it's sort of low budget and simple. And when they do work on proper special effects for that movie, because isn't there a big burning bed scene? I think something like that. Is that right?
Yeah,
that seems to ring a bell. It has a lot of impact.
Yeah,
because it's otherwise it's a pretty small, intimate, personal film. So you can do it right.
Terrific film. Yeah.
But often. They end up being a little bit cheesy. Did you see, was it Interview with the Vampire?
I did not. Well, I think I saw snippets of it in the promotional times and then trailers, and I just knew I wasn't going to like that film. So I was probably harsh, and I judged it before I even saw much of it. So I didn't. Did you? That's that's got some people in the Brad Pitt there, maybe? Tom
Cruise? It is Brad Pitt, I think. Yeah, Tom Cruise. I mean, it's a stellar 90s cast. I remember reading online, this is, some people can't say that, well, this is actually the most interesting vampire movie because it really explores the notion of what it is to be a vampire.
Yeah.
I remember coming out of that being tremendously disappointed. It's just actually a little bit boring.
Yeah.
I think especially because when you assemble a cast like that, you want Tom Cruise to do some running and you want Brad Pitt to do something a bit cheeky. And, and I think neither of them are really allowed to do the things that they are strongest at in that film. They end up just being a little bit sort of pale and pasty and reflective, and it doesn't really bring home the bacon. So, disappointing.
Not a great title either. It doesn't imply much action. Okay, two people are going to sit down, and maybe there's a tape recording or a video camera or something.
Either that, or it should surely be someone applying for a vampire job. And you've submitted your resume, and you're one of the lucky ones who's been selected for the interview with the vampire.
Good point.
But the other one, before we started recording, you did mention about the Taika Waititi film.
Yeah.
What We Do in the Shadows. Yeah. And that's kind of a lot of fun. But I feel like most of the vampire movies that we enjoy then are ones that kind of subvert the general traits. I mean, there is something which should be fun about vampire stories, insofar as, I tell you what I really like are rules-based stories. So vampire movies, they always have like a bunch of rules. The rules are pretty well established. After we went to see Sinners, I was wondering how familiar young people are with the rules of vampire movies and vampire stories. I went to ask Alice. I just said, "Have you got a minute? I need to ask you a question.
Yeah.
What are the rules about vampires?" And she didn't really know most of them. And I think probably young people in general don't know all the rules about how if you're a vampire, you cannot cross running water and you can't be exposed to garlic and you can't see a crucifix and you can't enter somewhere uninvited. All these complicated rules are generally, I think, not as well known as they used to be. But that is where a lot of the fun from the story comes from. If you set up a bunch of broadly arbitrary rules, I mean, they don't really make any sense. They kind of feel like they've been assembled at random. But as long as you establish what the rules are, you can have fun with it. That's why Let the Right One In works, doesn't it? And I think almost any story where you're basing it on rules gives you some parameters to play with. I mean, it's like a crime drama. The reason that a crime drama works is because you need to know that there are laws and there are punishments. There are rules that you must follow, and if you don't follow those particular rules, then there are rules about what will happen to you, and you will be pursued, and then you will be locked away. And this is why crime dramas work. People have broken some rules, and then there are rules about the way that people who break the rules get chased. I think any kind of random rule. Do you remember Gremlins? I mean, they have these simple rules: don't get in wet, don't feed him before midnight, something like that. And when you have a rules-based story like that, you have the enjoyment of the characters trying to avoid breaking the rules. Yeah. And then you have the enjoyment of watching what happens when the rules are broken. I mean, imagine that you wanted to... I was thinking before you turned up at the cocktail counter tonight that I was imagining, let's have a completely arbitrary rule. The rule is, don't tell Graham that it's Tuesday. And you're going to base your whole story on this notion, you mustn't tell Graham that it's Tuesday. And great, for the first half of the story, you've got people tiptoeing around Graham, not mentioning that it's Tuesday, having to say, it's going to be Wednesday tomorrow, Graham, but don't tell Graham that it's Tuesday. Yeah. And then halfway through the film, somebody tells Graham that it's Tuesday. And then you have the rest of the story of dealing with the fallout of what happens to Graham when he learns it's Tuesday. Yeah. It's a completely ludicrous, stupid idea, but because you've established a rule, you've told the audience what it is, the story kind of almost writes itself from that point of view. Yeah. And that's kind of what vampire movies are writ large, isn't it? They're rules that the whole audience can enjoy and understand. And then you base a story around having fun playing around the rules.
Yep. And then you always have rule breakers, of course, and rule followers. So you've got this automatic tension between them, and you're definitely going to see rules broken and then the consequences. And then you've got the other people who want to play by the rules all the time, and they call out the rule breakers, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think there's automatic tension in it, and you've got something you can play with.
Yeah, exactly.
That goes with the context of the whole vampire myth. So, yeah, boy, but I'm still struggling. First of all, I'm struggling because I'm wearing this ridiculous costume, but also just...
It's hot in a cape, isn't it? It's too hot, actually. These are not practical garments.
No wonder they're always throwing off their capes and getting naked.
I think if we do that at the popcorn counter, they won't just invite us back next week. So you would have seen Cronos, I'm guessing.
No.
Have you not?
Is that with a Kronos?
I think it's with a C.
Really?
It's the first big Guillermo del Toro movie, isn't it? I think.
Oh.
About a mysterious old guy who has it's like a brooch that he wears on his wrist, and the brooch drinks his blood, and then the brooch grants him eternal life, something like that. It's kind of creepy and strange, but it's essentially a vampire story. But it's the guy who carries a vampire, in a little sort of pocket watch. Mm-hmm. And again, you can kind of see how the rules work because
on the list,
you can spot that. You have the first part of the story where there's clearly something weird going on, and then you have part of the story where you explain what the rules are. Then you have a part of the story where you have to obey the rules, and then you have a part of the story where you explain when you explore what happens when the rules are broken. Huh. You establish this simple idea to start with, and the rest of the story kind of falls into place.
I've put it on my list. For sure. What's your take on Twilight? Is Twilight on your list? There are many Twilight films.
There are, there's like 5 of them, something like that. I have seen the first one. Have you seen any of them?
I think I've seen the first one, yeah. But
Right,
that's
okay,
it.
yeah, I've seen the first one.
Long time ago. They're vegetarians, aren't they? Is that that's the gimmick there? Is that right?
Something like that.
Like they're trying not to drink blood. They're trying to sort of suppress those urges to drink blood and kill people and turn them over. I don't know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. That was a long time
See,
ago.
I don't remember it particularly well, but I do remember feeling a little bit cheesed off that they had somehow acknowledged the rules and then just decided to break them all.
Yeah.
So it's like, vampires have to drink blood, but in this case, they don't.
Yeah.
Vampires aren't allowed to go out in the sunlight, but in this movie, the reason they don't go out in the sunlight is because they glisten.
They're all
rather than because they die.
so
I mean, it's
beautiful.
kind of I think you're kind of getting rid of the fun by breaking the rules. We've paid our money to see the movie. We want to see you explore the rules, not just break them all.
Yeah.
So I'm not a big. I didn't love that film. I don't think it's terrible. And it certainly knows who its audience is, and its audience is 15-year-old girls.
But it might be the reason that that whole generation doesn't know the rules of vampires, in part because that's the touchstone vampire film of a certain generation now. I think
It is, isn't it? Actually, yes. Now we know who to blame.
Mm-hmm. The younger generations. I always blame the younger generation.
Have you seen the original Nosferatu?
Yes, that's the Murnau. Is that right? You have to have Murnau. Yes, I have, and then I've seen. Boy, what else happened in there? There was was it Werner Herzog redid it with Isabella Gianni and Bruno Ganz or something like that?
Is it? It was not Klaus Kinski that's in that. And is it?
If it's a Herzog film, Klaus Kinski has to be in there. Jeez. Yes, that's a bit weird. I mean, I don't. I mean, vampire films are by their nature kind of weird, right? You've got to accept this notion that you're going to go visit this count. Well, I guess the Dracula film in particular. You're going to go visit the count, and he's going to be horridly ugly and obviously a bad kind of card to hang out with, but you do it anyway for some reason, and then all hell just breaks loose.
All hell breaking loose is the whole point of the film, though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's one of the rules.
Yeah, exactly. That rules are like Chekhov's gun, aren't they? As soon as they are established, you are making a pact with the audience to promise to break them, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's always going to be the case, isn't it?
Yeah.
I tell you what I think is a vampire movie which doesn't fall under this umbrella. I Googled vampire movies and this did not come up, but I reckon it is a vampire movie, which is Alien.
The original. We talked about this not long ago.
Yeah. I think Alien counts as a vampire movie. I mean, it's kind of effectively drinking the blood of its victims. It kind of turns its victims into more versions of itself, doesn't it? It takes on different forms. It moves in darkness. I think the alien in Alien is effectively like a science fictional version of a vampire.
Yeah.
I think probably without vampire stories and vampire movies, Alien probably wouldn't exist.
Yeah, similar genre, I guess. Ultimately, it's working on the same levels.
Yeah.
The same mechanisms, yeah.
And also, that also is kind of very rules-based, isn't it? Insofar as, that if you cut it, it will bleed acid, and you know that it will, try and catch you in some kind of dark corner. And I think there's enough parallels for me to hold my head up higher when I say that Alien is a vampire movie.
Have you ever seen, I think it's called Shadow of a Vampire?
No.
A 90s film. I believe that Willem Dafoe's in there at some point. They're actually, I think they're sort of making, it riffs on the Murnau classic, I think, where they're making this film about a vampire and they have a hard time casting the Dracula character. And then this local guy who looks a lot like a vampire just kind of walks in and he becomes the Dracula character. He's an untrained actor, but he's basically a vampire. So they've invited this vampire onto the set to be in this film about Count Dracula. It's very funny, but it's also, I think Willem Dafoe's the one who plays the Dracula character, and he just looks wretched. But it's the same sort of thing where people accept him despite how awful he looks. They don't suspect that he's a vampire, but he is. and I think it's called Shadow of a Vampire. Very clever, very clever. I think it's probably the best of the 90s bunch anyway.
There were a whole bunch of vampire films in the 90s. It makes you question what was happening in the 90s that made that such a contemporary idea.
Well, that's isn't the Robert Rodriguez? Is it a Tarantino script in a Rodriguez film? I forget.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, that's a vampire film.
So I have never seen that.
Oh,
I especially regretting it after we watched Sinners last week, because I think it has a very, very similar structure to Sinners, doesn't it? I think it starts out as one thing, and then halfway through the movie it flips to a vampire story. So my understanding is that Sinners has kind of borrowed its structure wholesale from Dusk Till Dawn.
It's actually quite similar. Yeah, it kind of ends up in a juke joint sort of place as well. It's I wouldn't say it's a great film by any means, but it was kind of entertaining. And I just looked up Shadow of the Vampire. It also has John Malkovich, who's in there as well. He's playing more now. And then Cary Elwes. He's been in a couple of vampire films.
That guy's always making vampire films.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely. It's 2000. I definitely recommend that one. It's a good one.
I'm guessing the 90s was still the era when people were very worried about HIV. And so the notion of disease transmitted through blood is probably most appropriately explored through the metaphor of vampirism. So I'm guessing maybe that's why vampires seem like such a contemporary notion now.
That's good.
My God, that's one of the ways the world has changed from the 90s, isn't it? We are inching closer and closer to a complete cure for HIV disease, aren't we, I think?
Yeah.
This is an incredible time to be alive, frankly.
Yes.
Good time to be alive. Terrible time to make a vampire movie, obviously, because all of those metaphors then will completely collapse once HIV, I'm touching wood as I say this, becomes a curable disease. That would be a great day for mankind.
It's a good day to be alive, but is it also a good day to be undead? I think there's a little distinction there.
I never really quite understood how, unalive is just a synonym for dead.
Yes.
So how come undead isn't just a synonym for alive? I think surely the people who came up with that didn't think it through.
Wearing this costume, I have a feeling I know what it's like to be undead.
I've just realised, dressed like this, we probably can't eat popcorn. At least not unless they spray something kind of red and sticky on it.
Such as jam. Jam!
Jam!
Ask them if they have some jam.
Well, at least this is an appropriate costume to watch a dragon moving in. So I think we can probably get away with getting into the theatre wearing this.
Sneaky. We have to ask. Don't let us in. Will you let us into the movie?